Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Six Path Weeb, your go-to spot for immersive anime fanfics and creative storytelling. Today, we're diving into part 2 of our ongoing fanfic series, Naruko Encountered a Spirit. Things are about to get even more intense. Quick disclaimer. This content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage featured, all rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now let's jump right in and see what happens next. Naruko woke up with a start, her body damp with sweat. She sat up quickly and sighed at the state of her bed. Lately, it felt like she was doing laundry more than anything else. At this rate, she'd have to wash her sheets and shirts twice a week. She once considered sleeping without extra clothes to avoid the hassle, but with the coolness of autumn settling in, that was definitely not a practical idea. She reminded herself that she was still young, and having unsettling dreams from time to time wasn't unusual. But Naruko was determined to act mature. She knew that whenever she carried herself more seriously, the Sandaime Hokage and even some of her Anbu escorts would take her more seriously, too. The loud and energetic personality she often showed was just a way to be noticed in a village that mostly overlooked her. But recently, she found herself caring more about the recognition from the few people who truly acknowledged her. So sharing her dreams with others was out of the question. She couldn't risk people thinking she wasn't mature enough. Especially not when she was working so hard toward early graduation. Besides, it wasn't the kind of dream she could easily talk about. The dream was always the same. There were the sounds of chains, and she would see a small, blonde baby, herself, marked by the familiar whisker-like patterns on her cheeks. She was being held gently, not by one but two pairs of warm arms. But then, that comforting warmth faded. She would cry out with everything she had, but her voice never reached anyone. She saw a large claw, a familiar presence that belonged to Kurama. The vision always left her feeling small and overwhelmed. "I had parents," she whispered into the quiet room. It was a statement that might seem obvious to anyone else. But to someone who had been alone for as long as she could remember, the thought of once having loving parents felt distant and unfamiliar. Oddly enough, Kurama seemed to understand the feeling better than she did. To Kurama, the Sage of Six Paths had been a kind of parent figure to the tailed beasts. Maybe that's why Naruko had never shared the dream with Kurama, and the fox never asked. Their mutual understanding didn't need words. Forgiveness had already passed between them in silence. Since then, the academy instructors had started to leave her alone, not in a negative way, but more like they no longer placed obstacles in her path. It seemed they were finally allowing her to move forward, and Naruko welcomed the change. Her focus now was on securing an apprenticeship, which would allow her to move on from the academy. She dedicated herself fully to her studies, especially in Fuinjutsu, the area she truly wanted to master. While she didn't need to excel in every subject, she pushed herself to understand everything as best as she could. To her surprise and joy, the Sandaime supported her wholeheartedly. For her birthday, he even gifted her some of his old books, full of knowledge and insight. Naruko treasured them. Tori, one of the Anbu assigned to watch over her, had once warned Naruko about her vast chakra reserves and advised her to begin chakra control training early. If she didn't, she might struggle with more delicate techniques later. So she added tree climbing and water walking exercises to her already busy schedule. Though life was hectic, Naruko was thriving academically, but socially, she had started to withdraw. Where once she tried hard to engage with her classmates, she now barely interacted with them. She had become so focused on her goals that she completely ignored her peers. The Sandaime noticed this and grew concerned. While he understood Naruko's dedication, he worried that she was becoming isolated. She still affectionately called him Ji-chan at times, but during discussions about her apprenticeship, she would switch to Hokage-sama with a kind of formal maturity that surprised him. It was clear she was trying to model herself after the adults around her, the Hokage, the Ichiraku family, and her Anbu protectors. But a young girl like Naruko needed friends her own age, too. The Sandaime discussed his concerns with her Anbu team, and thankfully, they agreed. They hoped Naruko would form a connection with someone close to her age before graduating, before her isolation became permanent. She was starting to resemble another young genius, Orochimaru, in her intense focus, and that thought worried the Hokage deeply. While these concerns grew in the background, Naruko herself was filled with excitement. Week by week, she inched closer to her dream. Based on her latest progress report, the Hokage was nearly ready to introduce her to a seal master for apprenticeship. Things were looking up. However, one thing still puzzled her: Uchiha Itachi. The young heir of the Uchiha clan had become a regular presence in her life over the past few weeks. He wasn't unkind, in fact, He seemed to be making an effort to befriend her. And while Naruko was still unsure of his intentions, she appreciated the gesture. Today, she spotted him in her favorite spot, among the branches of the Yujo no Ki. The tree, a treasured monument in Konoha, had been imbued with Hashirama's chakra long ago. Because of that, the Sandaime allowed her to rest there, as long as she respected and cared for it. The presence of the tree calmed Kurama in ways few things could. It wasn't about Hashirama's chakra directly, it was the lingering essence of someone who reminded the tailed beast of their shared origin, of a time long before conflict. Good afternoon, Uchiha-san, Naruko greeted politely. She rarely used honorifics, feeling they were too formal for people she considered close. She was still cautious around Itachi, but open to giving him a chance. After all, he had played a part in helping her earn this opportunity. Just call me Itachi, he replied gently as Naruko climbed up and settled on a branch beside him. You can add senpai if you'd like. Naruko gave a small, hesitant nod. Okay. Itachi-senpai. For some reason, Naruko couldn't quite understand why Itachi started visiting the Yujo no Ki around the same time she did. There weren't many words exchanged between them. Itachi would appear quietly, greet her with politeness, and ask about her day at the academy. Naruko usually responded with a nod and returned the same courtesy. Eventually, the Uchiha heir began bringing treats, not just candies, but traditional Japanese sweets like dengo, yukin, mochi, and others. Naruko couldn't remember exactly when Itachi began sitting beside her on the same tree branch, sharing sweets and sipping green tea as if it were routine. Unless he was away on a mission, Itachi always arrived at the same time, 4 in the afternoon, and only stayed for 20 minutes at most. Their conversations were light-hearted, often touching on the weather, the taste of sweets, or general greetings. It felt like they were quietly maintaining a peaceful rhythm. It was a rhythm both Naruko and Kurama were growing impatient with, especially after Tori hinted that the Anbu allowed Itachi to keep her company when she visited the tree. Apparently, they were concerned about her social isolation and thought Itachi's presence might be helpful. Since he had a younger sibling around Naruko's age and was only 4 years older himself, he was still considered a peer in many ways. Being a prodigy, perhaps they hoped he could relate to her. So, they arranged what Naruko could only describe as play dates with Uchiha Itachi. Imagine that. Kurama grumbled restlessly in his space, insisting she stop going to the tree. Naruko pointed out they didn't really have a choice, unless Kurama could think of a believable excuse to give Tori. Rejecting the company of someone when she was known to be alone would raise suspicion. Not to mention, she felt a bit guilty about how she'd behaved toward Itachi during their first encounter. In short, she had little choice but to endure the awkward afternoons. By the third week of their quiet meetings, Naruko found Itachi waiting once again on the same branch. As always, he sat calmly in a lotus position, with a small package of sweets and a thermos of green tea by his side. He looked perfectly at peace, quietly waiting for her arrival. Naruko couldn't help but wonder if he didn't have more important things to do. Wasn't he part of the Anbu now? Then again, being in Tori's squad, maybe this was simply part of his assignment. She didn't mind company, but not when it came from someone so difficult to read. She couldn't quite figure Itachi out and wasn't sure she even wanted to. Good afternoon, Naruko-chan. Naruko nodded. Itachi-senpai, were you waiting for me? She asked, stepping up onto the thick tree branch. Itachi nodded. Yes, I wish to speak with you. It's important. Naruko wasn't used to being surprised. She was usually the one catching others off guard. She had actually been planning to confront Itachi and ask what his intentions were, but he had gotten ahead of her. What did you want to talk about? She asked politely. You don't have to be so formal with me, Naruko-chan. You're more casual with Hokage-sama than you are with me, Itachi said in a steady tone. Naruko shrugged. Fine, senpai. But I still don't get why you want to talk to someone like me. It's because you're you that I want to talk with, he answered without hesitation. Naruko raised an eyebrow. What does that even mean? You're someone who has seen how people can change when they're overwhelmed by negative emotions, Itachi said calmly. Naruko's eyes widened, and she instinctively took a step back before bursting into laughter. Wow, dramatic much, senpai? Is that an Uchiha thing? Ha ha ha. Seriously? This is getting weird, Naruko thought. I told you, Kurama muttered. This Uchiha has too many layers. Either take charge or leave before it gets confusing. I can't just leave again. It'll look suspicious. I might as well figure out what this is all about now. Fine. I'll take a nap, but don't mess this up, Kurama grumbled before going quiet, one eye metaphorically half open. Naruko snapped, all right already. Just get to the point. I'm not great with mystery talk, I'm 7. I'm not trying to confuse you, Naruko-chan, Itachi said. Naruko sat back down with a sigh. Fine, but no going in circles. Are you suggesting I know why people treat me differently? She asked, now speaking more bluntly. Itachi blinked and then nodded slightly. He now realized Naruko had likely figured out the truth about her connection to the Nine Tails. The signs were hard to miss, after all. With her natural perceptiveness and early grasp of Fuinjutsu, it wouldn't have taken long. Naruko frowned. So that's what this is about, huh? She muttered. You just wanted to confirm it. Itachi's gaze softened. I mean no harm, Naruko-chan. You've likely understood some of the basics of sealing arts. And people in the village aren't exactly discreet with their behavior. I just wanted to know what you plan to do with that knowledge. Naruko gave him a wary look. If you're worried I'll do something reckless, don't be. Pulling pranks is the worst you'll get from me. I don't believe that returning unkindness with more unkindness solves anything. Her voice dropped slightly. I'd just be lowering myself. Itachi watched her for a long moment, and his normally unreadable face showed a flicker of admiration. That's incredibly mature of you. He was deeply impressed that she could see through the bitterness and choose a higher path, especially at her age. Naruko shrugged. I try to take things as they come. Doesn't mean it's easy. I still don't trust easily. People tend to give me reasons not to. Itachi tilted his head slightly and sighed. I hope I haven't given you any reason to think I dislike you because of your situation. Naruko shook her head. I don't know why you keep spending time with me, Itachi-senpai. And honestly, I feel a little confused, grateful, sure, but nervous too. Itachi began. No, Naruko interrupted. Don't you get it? I know your clan's situation right now. At that, Itachi stiffened. That's why I'm being careful. Itachi paused before giving a thoughtful nod. You're right. It's natural to be cautious around someone from a clan under so much scrutiny. Especially given your circumstances. Naruko stared at him. You're seriously agreeing with me? Just like that? Yes, he replied calmly. It's wise to be cautious, especially considering what you carry. Naruko's eyes widened again. I can't believe you just admitted that. Then Itachi asked, can you talk with him? Naruko gave him a sharp look. If I say yes, are you going to run to the Hokage and report me? Itachi shook his head. I can sense chakra. If you were in any danger, I'd know. Besides, I won't share this with anyone without your permission. Naruko let out a small breath of relief. Thanks. But it's him, not it. Itachi raised a brow, but didn't question it. Naruko tilted her head. You're a shinobi, and you're just trusting me to keep this from Hokage-ji? That's pretty bold. You have your reasons. You've shown no intention of causing harm despite everything. That gives you the right to your own secrets, Itachi said. Then he added, I have a younger sibling around your age. Just a few months older. Oh? Naruko blinked. What's that got to do with me? That night. My parents were away, and I was left to look after my sister. I didn't witness the Nine Tails directly, but I could sense its powerful chakra. Itachi gently rubbed his temple as the memory returned. The chakra was overwhelming. Children cried just by feeling it. If Lord Forth hadn't acted quickly to seal it, the effects would have been far-reaching. Many vulnerable individuals, like elders, expectant mothers, and newborns, would have been severely affected. Including my sister. Itachi suddenly stood and bowed to Naruko with deep respect. That night, everyone fought to protect the village. Without your sacrifice, Konoha might have been lost. You carried that responsibility for all of us and chose not to give in to resentment. For that, I am truly grateful. It was the longest speech Naruko had ever heard from Itachi. She always knew that some people appreciated her, but Itachi was the first to say it so openly and sincerely. For once, someone was simply being honest with her. Maybe he truly did deserve a second chance. Naruko rubbed her temple, a small smile on her face. I guess. You really are different, after all. Itachi raised an eyebrow. Naruko looked at him intently. I want to ask you one thing, and I want the truth, Itachi-senpai. I'll answer honestly, Itachi promised. Do you hate the one sealed inside me? That question clearly surprised him. Do I hate it? He repeated, considering his words carefully. I suppose I should, given how my clan has been treated because of it. But if the Nine Tails was controlled during the attack, like some suspected, then it wasn't acting on its own. In that case, my loyalty lies with Konoha. I would protect the village from any threat, not out of hatred, but out of duty and love. Naruko blinked slowly. Nothing seemed to shake this guy's composure. But that explanation actually made sense. Well, that's very reasonable of you, Itachi-senpai. She admitted before turning inward. Kurama, sorry for waking you up, but what do you think of him? I heard everything, Kurama grumbled. I still don't like the Uchiha in general, but this one is more level-headed than most I've met. Unfortunately, the village's suspicions weren't wrong. Someone from his clan did control me. What? Naruko shouted before quickly covering her mouth. Itachi looked confused but didn't press. Kurama. You never told me that. I thought it was obvious, Kurama replied flatly. I told you I was controlled. Hashirama is long gone, and you know how I was treated before. It had to be an Uchiha. When you put it like that. Naruko sighed mentally and looked toward Itachi, wondering how to break the news. It seems the village's suspicions toward your clan might have some merit. Itachi shut his eyes tightly, jaw clenched. So it's true. He looked at Naruko seriously. I have one more question. If someone from my clan was responsible, can you or your tenant identify them? Hold on. Naruko waved her hands, a bit flustered. Let me check first. Itachi took a step back, looking slightly apologetic as Naruko turned inward again. Kurama, do you know who it was? Madara, Kurama responded with a growl. Naruko blinked. Are you sure that's not your bias talking? Kurama groaned. Fine, I admit my memory isn't perfect. But he wore a mask with only one eye hole for a Sharingan. He had a dark cloak, and his chakra was filled with negativity. If he wasn't Madara, he was someone just like him. Naruko turned to Itachi. He said the person wore a mask showing only his Sharingan, had a dark cloak, and his chakra felt extremely hostile. Apparently, that's something common among certain Uchiha. Itachi looked troubled. Even the Nine Tails believes that. Perhaps my clan really has been burdened with something terrible. Kurama has a long history with the Uchiha, Naruko replied gently. It's better not to jump to conclusions based on that. At least I can say you're not like them, Itachi-senpai. Thank you, Naruko-chan, he replied sincerely. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. You're welcome. I suppose I should be angry at that masked person instead. But I doubt he's still in the village. Kurama would definitely have sensed something if he were. Itachi rubbed his temple. So much for tracking him down and restoring the clan's honor. This situation is more complicated than I hoped. Naruko sighed. Every time a new truth comes up, it seems to make things messier. She tilted her head. So, what will you do now that you know the truth? For the first time, Itachi looked uncertain. I honestly don't know. You're asking me how to deal with it? Naruko gave a short laugh. I just keep going. I do my best, try to help people, and keep working to live up to my family's name. Even if not everyone accepts me yet, I have goals now. And I think the people I care about would be proud of who I'm becoming. Itachi let out a rare chuckle, catching Naruko off guard. What's funny? Forgive me, he said with a soft smile. It's just that you are far from a failure. In fact, I think you are one of the strongest people I've met, both as a person and as a Jinchuriki. I've heard stories of others who lost their way, but you're different. I thought information about Jinchuriki was kept secret? Naruko asked curiously. It is. But in wartime, secrets tend to leak. I heard from a comrade that another village had a young Jinchuriki who lashed out unpredictably. He paused. Compared to that, Konoha is very fortunate to have you. Nice to know I'm appreciated for having self-control, Naruko muttered, half joking. Itachi extended his hand to her. May I? Naruko raised an eyebrow but took his hand. A soft smile formed on her lips. Is this the start of something awkward and unexpected? Friendship, Itachi finished. But I think the awkwardness will fade with time. Naruko groaned playfully. Great. Am I going to have to listen to your logical advice forever? Itachi gave a small nod. Someone has to be the voice of reason, Naruko-chan. I suppose I'll grow to appreciate that. Naruko grinned, while Kurama sighed dramatically in the background. HN. Oh. The famous Uchiha HN, Naruko laughed. Speaking of your clan. They're all skilled in fire jutsu, right? Yes, Itachi confirmed. Naruko's grin widened. Perfect. Do you know anyone who'd volunteer for an experimental demonstration? You mean someone willing to be your test subject for a potentially unstable jutsu? Itachi rephrased calmly. Naruko's eye twitched. I was trying to phrase it nicely. HN. Naruko facepalmed. So very Uchiha of you. 3 days later. Uchiha Shisui wasn't quite sure what to expect when Itachi asked for help with a mock spar to demonstrate new shinobi tools. His younger cousin was undeniably a prodigy, and while Shisui considered himself talented as well, even he couldn't always follow Itachi's unusual logic. Still, Itachi was his favorite cousin, and that made him special. Sure, Shisui replied without hesitation. What exactly are we showing off? High-quality sealing tools, Itachi answered concisely. An hour later, Shisui had formed a solid opinion of the tags that the blonde girl had generously given him. These are amazing. This fire seal is the best I've seen, he said enthusiastically, admiring the glowing, cross-shaped burn pattern on the rocky ground of Training Ground 22. Naruko watched Shisui, a bit puzzled. She had expected someone more reserved. If this was a typical Uchiha, she would eat her sandals. So far, her only source of Uchiha behavior had been Kurama's second-hand opinions, and Shisui's cheerful nature clashed wildly with that. Itachi, at least, looked the part, calm and serious. Shisui, however, was practically bouncing with energy. Thank you? Naruko said politely, though she couldn't help but feel flattered. She wanted to jump for joy at the praise, but kept herself composed in front of someone she didn't know well. Shisui raised an eyebrow, amused by her formality. No wonder you're friends with Itachi, you're just as serious and stiff as he is. Excuse me? What did you say? Naruko blinked, eyebrow raised. Shisui gaped at her and turned to Itachi. What did you do, Itachi? She said excuse me? She's the same age as little Sasuke and talks like a tiny diplomat. Itachi gave his cousin a flat look. What makes you think that's my fault? Shisui scoffed. Kids Naruko-chan's age are usually bouncing off the walls with excitement when you praise them. Chan? Naruko asked, narrowing her eyes. Itachi facepalmed while Shisui grinned mischievously. It was clear he was trying to coax a more relaxed reaction from her. Naruko always guarded herself around strangers, especially adults. It took deliberate pressure, like what Itachi had applied, for her to let her true self show. Yes, Naruko-chan, Shisui continued with mock solemnity. You're 7, right? So small, even shorter than Sasuke-chan. And I thought he was tiny. Naruko stiffened. She clenched her fists at her sides but kept her face calm. Inside, however, she was silently fuming. Who does he think he's calling tiny? In her mindscape, Naruko threw an imaginary tantrum in front of Kurama's chamber, much to the fox's amusement. I thought you were finally growing up, Kurama said with a chuckle, but it's good to see a small comment still gets to you. Kurama. Yeah? Do you know any ways to get taller? Drink milk. Eat a lot. Protein helps. Kurama replied in his usual blunt tone. Fine. Humph. Naruko ended the brief conversation with a scowl. Back in reality, she turned to Itachi, silently questioning how he could stand Shisui's behavior. Itachi simply shrugged, apparently, he'd just gotten used to it. Shisui watched the silent exchange and threw his hands up. I can't believe you, Itachi. You've already turned her into a mini-you. Shisui, please be quiet, Itachi sighed, rubbing his temple. Naruko took a deep breath, deciding to follow Itachi's example. She'd just have to tolerate Shisui's playful teasing. The Hokage will be arriving soon. Do you still want to experiment with the seal? Should I explain it again? Itachi shook his head. Let's wait for Hokage-sama and the seal master. It'll save you from having to repeat everything. Naruko nodded. That sounds good. Shisui tilted his head, eyeing the seal tag stacked neatly on the wooden stump Naruko had been using as a table. His eyes landed on a spherical device with the kanji for Hikari etched on its surface. Hey, Naruko-chan. You didn't explain that one. It's a new flash tag, right? Naruko quickly waved her hands. Please don't try that one, Shisui-senpai. It's still untested, and it could temporarily blind someone with visual techniques like yours. I don't want anyone leaving with a headache. She shuddered at the thought. Maybe creating that tag hadn't been the smartest idea, but Kurama had insisted she design it, just in case they ever faced that masked Uchiha again. Itachi calmly collected the spherical tags and handed them back to Naruko. You should hold on to these. Better safe than sorry. Hey! Shisui protested, watching them ignore his interest entirely. Naruko gave a sheepish smile. Thank you, Itachi-senpai. Like I said, better safe than sorry. Itachi turned to Shisui. And please, Lower your voice. I'm older than both of you, you know. Shisui huffed. Naruko's eyes widened in mock surprise. Really? I forget that myself sometimes, Itachi added dryly. He certainly doesn't act his age, does he, Naruko-kun? Shisui pouted. Sasuke-chan is my new favorite cousin now. You, Itachi, are officially my least favorite, right under Tekka. Itachi groaned, rubbing his forehead. Seriously? Below Tekka? Naruko chuckled softly at their banter. Then the chuckle grew louder until she was laughing, her eyes shining with amusement. She hunched over slightly, trying to control her giggles. Ha ha! She flushed when she realized how much she was laughing and tried to collect herself. Sorry, I. Before she could finish, Shisui swooped in and gave her an enthusiastic hug. It's like watching a mini Itachi smile. Startled, Naruko yelped and instinctively kicked Shisui in the face. Then she dashed over and hid behind Itachi. Everyone froze. Naruko realized what she had done and hesitated, bracing for a scolding. Instead, Shisui burst into a fit of laughter. She's hiding behind you. That's so cute. Itachi stepped in. That's enough, Shisui. You know how people treat her. She's not used to this kind of attention. Shisui's grin faded. He crouched down to Naruko's eye level. I'm sorry, Naruko-chan. I get too excited sometimes. Naruko tilted her head. I'm sorry for reacting that way, Shisui-senpai. Still, she remained tucked safely behind Itachi's leg. Her anxiety didn't vanish just because someone said sorry. Kurama's voice echoed in her mind, caution can be useful. Sometimes it helps you see tomorrow. Before the situation could grow more awkward, a gentle voice called out, Naruko-kun. They turned to see the Hokage approaching with a warm smile. Behind him stood a kind-looking man in his mid-30s, with curly dark brown hair, soft eyes, and square glasses. He wore a formal black kimono and a white haori embroidered with the kanji for seal. All three bowed respectfully. Hokage-sama. Sarutobi smiled. I see you've made some friends, Naruko-kun. He sounded genuinely pleased. This is Aizen Sosuke, the Hokage added, gesturing to the man behind him. He's the current head of Konoha's SEAL division. Naruko studied the scholarly-looking man. He seemed gentle, more teacher than warrior. But as Kurama had told her before, appearances could be misleading. Hello, Naruko-kun, Aizen greeted with a friendly smile. I'll be your instructor. That is, if I meet your expectations, Naruko replied politely. Aizen chuckled. I've seen your notes. You've already impressed me. Then he turned to the Hokage. After reviewing her work, I can say confidently, I wouldn't let anyone else take the lead in her training. Sarutobi chuckled. Eager to help develop Konoha's next SEAL master, I see. Itachi, watching Aizen closely, felt a quiet sense of caution rise in his chest. He couldn't explain it, maybe it was just instinct. But something about Aizen's quiet demeanor put him on edge. Shisui tilted his head thoughtfully as he pulled a tag from his pouch. This one. He glanced at Itachi, makes your feet stick to the ground. It's very useful for setting traps, unless you're facing someone who specializes in earth-style techniques. He frowned at his bare feet. Still, if it only reaches your feet, anyone could manage a quick slip away using the right technique. Itachi gave a small shrug. Shisui is right. However, it's still effective for catching someone off guard, even for just a few seconds. The seal, Gom Jimin Fuuin, or sticky ground seal, works well enough, but its range is limited. Only about a 3-foot radius around the seal itself. Naruko let out a small sigh. Actually, it depends on the amount of chakra you use, she explained. To keep things balanced, I added a limiter symbol so it gets just sticky enough to hold someone within that small range and lasts a bit longer. She glanced at them. It's not an elemental seal either, it's a more advanced version of the tree climbing exercise, just written into a seal? The elderly Hokage mused aloud with amusement. It definitely has potential. Especially since the ground doesn't change in appearance after applying the seal. Without a special eye technique to detect chakra, it's almost impossible to tell a trap has been set. Aizen nodded thoughtfully. This seal activates the moment it touches the ground. There's no need to physically attach it, and it can be reused. Most of us move instinctively with chakra-enhanced steps, so if any part of the body has chakra concentrated in it, it gets caught immediately. The blonde girl nodded. It's great for trap settings, though it does need a lot of chakra to stay active longer than a few minutes. Still, once someone is caught in its radius, their chakra sustains the seal. She reached into her backpack. As for the range, if you want one with a wider radius, you'll need more chakra to keep it strong and sticky enough until it activates. She pulled out another tag. This is the last one I've prepared for today. She held up a special tag. It's a flash bomb tag. It can stay active for more than 5 minutes and comes in 7 different colors. She paused at the Hokage's look. No, it's not for pranks. You'll definitely need sunglasses to use this one safely, Shisui quipped with a grin, clearly referring to those with advanced eye techniques. Also, let's make sure no one tries using this near the Uchiha or Hyuga compounds. I agree, Itachi replied calmly. Sarutobi smiled warmly. It seemed Naruko still had a playful streak. I'll have my Anbu and Oinin teams test it out. If it works well, I want to implement it for their missions. Naruko nodded politely. Of course, Hokage-sama. She gave a respectful bow, causing the third Hokage's expression to briefly soften before becoming professional once more. Clearing his throat, Sarutobi continued, Aizen has spoken highly of your talent, and I've seen for myself what you're capable of, modifying basic seals and expanding simple techniques like tree climbing into something so effective. He retrieved a red scroll adorned with golden trim and the Konoha symbol, handing it to her. You've earned this, Naruko-kun. Congratulations, you passed with excellence. The blonde Jinchuriki accepted the scroll with trembling hands, still stunned that her efforts were finally being recognized. Thank you, Hokage-sama. She bowed again, then turned to Aizen. It's an honor to become your student, Aizen-san. I'll give it my all. Aizen smiled gently. I look forward to teaching you, Naruko-kun. You may call me Shisho from now on. Hi, Shisho, she responded sincerely. Naruko. A deep voice echoed in her mind. Yes, Kurama? She responded mentally. Her companion rarely initiated a conversation. I don't trust this man. Kurama growled. I understand. Naruko replied silently, chuckling to herself. I promise I'll be careful. She glanced toward her side, noticing Itachi watching Aizen with a sharp, narrowed gaze before looking back to her. She offered him a small, reassuring smile and nodded. You are not alone in your doubts, my friend. Humph, Kurama huffed with disapproval. March 7th, 7 years after the passing of the fourth Hokage, marked a milestone in the life of Uzumaki Naruko. She had graduated from the Ninja Academy and was now apprenticed under Aizen Sosuke, an event that would shape her future in unexpected ways. Aizen was a charming person, or at least, he presented himself that way. Naruko didn't know why, but she, Kurama, and Itachi all felt a subtle unease around him. Still, she said nothing when Aizen asked her to move to the Fuin Division dormitory. It made sense that a mentor would want to stay in close contact with their student, especially one as dedicated to her studies as Naruko. She didn't have much attachment to her old apartment, and at the very least, the new place wouldn't feel empty. Or so she thought. The dormitory was located in a tower on the west side of the North Forest, not far from the city. It looked very similar to her old apartment, only larger. It had a queen-sized bedroom, a bathroom, and a small kitchen. However, it lacked personality. It felt too clean, too bare, almost like a blank canvas waiting for her to add her touch. How do you like it, Naruko-chan? Aizen asked warmly as he guided the blonde girl through the space. Naruko nodded enthusiastically. I like it. It's way bigger than my old place. Though she smiled, she also noticed how quiet it felt. But I thought dorm rooms were supposed to be small. Not when it's for the division leader, Aizen replied with a calm smile. Oh. Naruko blinked in surprise, then turned to him with a puzzled look. Oh, I thought I was going to live alone. Is this your place, Shisu? Aizen chuckled and shook his head. No, I have a house of my own about 10 minutes from the tower. I would have offered you a room there. But the elders insisted that you stay here. It seemed Naruko wasn't the only one with doubts about Aizen. She wondered why, if there were suspicions, the leadership still allowed him to retain his position. As far as she knew, the Aizen clan wasn't particularly influential, so political concerns couldn't be the reason. I'm not sure I should have such a big place, Naruko murmured. Nonsense, Aizen said gently. You've lived with certain comforts, a kitchen, a private bathroom. The Hokage believes you deserve those same comforts here. This space hasn't been used in years. Better that it serve someone than collect dust. Naruko smiled. I promise I'll take great care of it, Shisu. Then she brightened. Oh. Can I paint it orange? Aizen blinked, a drop of sweat trailing down his cheek. Well. This is technically not private property, Naruko-chan. Maybe a very light shade of orange? I'll ask the Hokage for permission on your behalf. Really? Thank you, Shisu. Naruko beamed as he left to attend to other matters. See you soon. She called after him, waving. As soon as Aizen disappeared from sight, Naruko closed the door and narrowed her eyes. That man's not as open as he acts, Kurama muttered in her mind. Why ask the Hokage for you? You could have done it yourself. It's like he wants you to owe him. Naruko sighed as she began unpacking her books. Maybe he's trying to get on my good side. He acts like he's doing me a favor. You know, being too trusting can backfire, Kurama warned. Naruko placed another book on the shelf, her expression softening. Hiragi-ji. Even with everything that happened, I can't resent him. He gave up his life's work for me. Whatever his reasons were. What he gave me is everything for a seal master. Like a shinobi giving up their hands. That's true. We were lucky he didn't mess things up. Yeah. But Hiragi-ji probably isn't around anymore. I don't know if he meant well or not, but in the end, he gave me something expecting nothing back. Naruko often thought about the people in her life. The Hokage cared about her, but there was also duty in his affection. She was the village's Jinchuriki, after all. Her education, her protection, everything came with that title. Tori-san looked out for her, but as part of the Anbu, it was also a mission. Then there was Itachi. With him, it felt more genuine. They shared a quiet understanding. Itachi, the prodigy who carried the pride of the Uchiha clan, bore responsibilities Naruko could only imagine. And Naruko, the girl shaped by sacrifice, had been both shunned and embraced by the village depending on what they needed from her. They both knew how unkind people could be when driven by fear or hatred. Sometimes Naruko wondered if she really was a prodigy. If being a genius meant seeing clearly when others didn't, then maybe it was more a burden than a gift. A blessing to see things as they are, but a curse to know you're surrounded by those who don't. She brushed the thought away with a faint smile. Maybe she was spending too much time with Itachi. Uchiha compound. Sasuke Uchiha would happily admit he adored his big sister more than anyone else. It was ironic, while the clan often compared him to Itachi, it was she who shielded him from that pressure. Living in her shadow wasn't easy, but Sasuke always found comfort in her quiet presence and their mother's warmth. Since joining the Anbu, Itachi had been busier, and time with her had become a rare treasure. Today, she'd promised to let Sasuke watch her train with kunai and shuriken. He rushed home with excitement, but she hadn't arrived yet. Ka-san. Sasuke called, hopping onto a chair at the table. Where's Nei-san? Mikado paused as she unpacked groceries. She went to Munechika-san's shop. She should be back soon, she's been gone for 2 hours. Sasuke tilted his head. Munechika-san? I thought she already restocked her tools last week? She did, Mikado said with a smile. But she also placed a custom order. She went today to pick it up. Oh. Sasuke's eyes sparkled. Did Nei-san order some cool weapons? I didn't, a calm voice said from behind him. Sasuke spun around and nearly fell off his chair. Nei-san. You startled me. Itachi's lips curled into a small smile. Tadaima. Ka-san, Sasuke. She walked past and gently tapped his forehead, earning a playful pout. Be more alert next time. Then she raised a plastic bag. Yoruchi Bazen gave me some anpan and curry bread. Mikado smiled warmly. That was thoughtful of them. Sasuke turned to her eagerly. So what did you get from Munechika-san, Nei-san? You'll see it later, Itachi promised with a playful glint in her eyes. Sasuke watched in awe as his older sibling showed him a custom-made shuriken, which materialized from a storage scroll. Unlike regular ones, its tips were tapered into a diamond-shaped hole, runes elegantly etched into the metallic surface with the character, Hono, meaning flame, at the center. Next to it, Itachi placed what appeared to be just a slip of paper. Noticing Sasuke's puzzled expression, Itachi chuckled softly. Let's see how these work in action, shall we? He said, motioning for Sasuke to follow him to a nearby clearing. Sasuke's confusion only deepened when Itachi pulled a wooden figure from the scroll. Unlike the straw targets used in training grounds, this one was crafted from solid wood, resembling an artist's mannequin, but much larger, standing taller than Sasuke himself. Itachi gently placed a tag on the puppet's head, which bore complex runes and the character, Iki, meaning breath, at the center. Sasuke gasped in astonishment when the wooden dummy suddenly began to move. Its motions were clumsy and jittery, as if it were trying to flee in a panicked state. It stumbled forward before circling the clearing in a bizarre, exaggerated run that looked almost like dancing. "I'm not sure that's intentional," Itachi remarked calmly, unfazed even when the puppet's head twisted far too far around. "Ni-san," Sasuke whispered uneasily, "it's dancing." Itachi raised an eyebrow just as the puppet began a wildly uncoordinated ballet. It leapt into the air, arms outstretched, as if trying to take flight. Sasuke cringed. "If this is supposed to be funny, I'm not sure it's working." With a quiet sigh, Itachi stepped forward and suddenly broke into a sprint. From the corner of his eye, he saw their father, Fugaku, approaching to observe the training. Ignoring the onlookers, Itachi flung the custom shuriken at the puppet. As it sailed through the air, flames burst forth and surrounded the shuriken, forming a blazing disc. The puppet jumped to dodge, legs stretching awkwardly midair, but the fiery edge grazed its feet. Still in motion, the puppet landed unsteadily and began spinning in place, its feet emitting small flickers where the fire had touched. Itachi quickly used his movements to guide a wall of flame around it, smoothly avoiding a spinning kick in return. "Flaming shuriken," Fugaku murmured, watching closely while Sasuke clung nervously to his side. "It's a more refined version of the fire blossom technique." Sasuke looked up in wonder. "Ni-san is amazing. But how did the shuriken catch fire like that? He didn't even use a fire jutsu." "Fuinjutsu," Fugaku explained. The shuriken was infused with Itachi's fire chakra. The rune on it shapes and channels that energy, producing an effect similar to a fire-style technique. He paused. "Seal-based enhancements, very advanced. This idea came from someone else, actually." He remembered Shisui telling him about Minato's daughter, Naruko, a young seal prodigy. Though still growing in her abilities, her creativity had left even experienced shinobi impressed. Fugaku sighed inwardly. He wished the Uchiha could have welcomed Naruko into their care, but the political climate made such hopes impossible. The third Hokage and his advisors would never agree. Still, he knew Naruko was close to them by more than just legacy. His wife, Mikoto, had been Kushina's best friend, and he himself had grown up alongside Minato. What few people knew was that Minato and Fugaku were actually related, second cousins, through a distant connection between the Uchiha and the Namikaze clans. Minato's mother had inherited a recessive Uchiha trait, and the Namikaze line was a distant offshoot of the Senju, explaining the mix in Naruko's appearance. With all that blood blending, there was no realistic chance of Sharingan awakening in Naruko. Still, the bonds between the families were deep. He recalled how heartbroken Minato had been when Obito was lost, and how sincerely he'd apologized afterward. If Kakashi still bore the Sharingan, it was because of Obito's final wish. The clan had been angry, yes, but even they had respected that much. No matter how others tried to rewrite history, Fugaku remembered the truth. Minato had always treated the Uchiha fairly, perhaps more than anyone else since the founding Hokage. His thoughts drifted back to a brighter time. "Fugaku. I've decided, I'm naming my daughter Naruko," Minato had announced proudly. Fugaku's eyebrow had twitched. "What did I tell you about letting Kushina pick the name?" "Hey! It's not a ramen topping this time," Minato defended, pouting slightly. "I named her after the main character in Jiraiya-sensei's novel. And no, it's not one of those stories." The Uchiha patriarch groaned and rubbed his temple. "Even better. A name from Jiraiya-sama. He's a legendary shinobi, yes, but..." "Come on. My sensei isn't that bad," Minato argued. "I've had to escort him out of the village baths 3 times this week," Fugaku said flatly. "Oh." Minato looked genuinely embarrassed. "Okay. He's a little bad." Fugaku's expression darkened. "This afternoon was the 3rd time. Your wife and mine were at the hot spring for pregnancy exercises." "Oh. Indeed. Want to help me have a word with my sensei?" "With pleasure," Fugaku replied dryly. "To-san?" Itachi called gently. Fugaku blinked out of his thoughts, his gaze falling on Itachi's tense form and young Sasuke peeking nervously from behind his brother. He realized he had been releasing an intense aura unintentionally while lost in memory. "I'm fine now, Itachi. Sasuke. It's just been a long day." His eyes narrowed slightly as he addressed his elder son. "About your new friend, Itachi." The older brother straightened. "Yes? Value her, Itachi," Fugaku said slowly. "As my child, you should do better than I once did." He hoped Itachi could mend what he himself had lost with Minato, so their children wouldn't grow apart due to negligence or unspoken regrets. Itachi was taken aback by the sincerity and wondered if there was more to his father's words. Yes, father, he said respectfully. He couldn't give Minato's daughter a family, but he could at least ensure she had a true friend. After beginning her apprenticeship, Naruko received new clothes and a small place to call her home. Instead of the typical attire, she was given a short, double-layered kimono. The outer layer was white with a bold orange stripe across the chest, while the inner layer was a solid orange. The pants were a darker shade of orange and reached just above her knees. She was also given traditional black jika tabi, soft-soled footwear that initially felt odd but soon became a favorite for their comfort and agility. She enjoyed the way they allowed her feet to sense the ground directly, which helped in training. Kurama had informed her that the clothing resembled something Uzumaki Mito had once given her own child. It made sense, as it came from Uzushio Gakure and likely had preservation seals sewn into the fabric. Naruko didn't quite know how to react when the Hokage gave it to her with little explanation beyond calling it a gift. She often found herself wishing for even a small acknowledgement of her heritage, something that would make her feel connected, not forgotten. Scrolls. Books. So many of them, Shisui exclaimed with mock horror, looking around Naruko's shelves. No wonder people think the Fuuin division are scholars first and ninja second. Naruko blinked, wondering why Itachi had thought bringing Shisui here was a good idea. Shisui. The older boy had insisted she drop the honorific after promising not to call her Naruko-chan anymore. Put that scroll back. I thought the Uchiha valued intellect as much as skill. Shisui raised an eyebrow. We are smart by nature. But for your information, I don't need to read scrolls to learn jutsu. We have instructors, and Sharingan. I believe Naruko-san means that our Sharingan helps us refine our combat style through strategy, not just strength, Itachi added, sipping his green tea calmly. Shisui grinned. Well, my record time in a fight is 3 minutes flat, used Shunshine to appear behind the opponent and hit with a fire technique. Quick and efficient, like cup noodles. Naruko stared. Are you seriously saying that setting someone on fire is more effective than using your treasured Sharingan? He shrugged. We have a thing for fire techniques. Sometimes overthinking slows you down. Simplicity wins. Itachi nodded. Sharingan is powerful, but it must be backed by insight. Shisui's method tends to be more direct. Hey! Shisui huffed at his cousin. Naruko nodded thoughtfully. I see. No, you don't, Shisui muttered. Itachi changed the subject. By the way, Naruko-san, I tested that Nenshao Shuriken with the puppet seal you gave me. Her eyes brightened. Really? Did both work well? The Nenshao Shuriken worked as intended. As for your puppet seal. He tilted his head, defined properly. Naruko raised an eyebrow. Huh? 20 minutes later, at the training grounds, Naruko and Shisui stared in disbelief. The puppet had just completed 32 rapid spins and was now bouncing in a rather exaggerated manner. Aizen clapped politely, while Itachi's expression remained composed, except for a nearly imperceptible twitch of his left eyebrow. Shisui regretted drawing Mito Guy's face on it. It was creepy enough with a blank mask, but with thick eyebrows and a wide smile, it was downright unsettling. What started out amusing had taken a bizarre turn. Silence fell, broken only by Aizen's clapping. Shisui finally spoke. No wonder Sasuke looked shaken earlier. His voice was strained. Naruko. I have to admit. This isn't funny. Naruko looked mortified. But I didn't mean for it to do that. I was just trying to upgrade the standard puppet seal the Ryudoin clan uses. I thought it would make the movements more fluid. Aizen smiled, still unfazed. Well, the puppet does move more fluidly now, Naruko-san. Not that kind of fluid, she exclaimed. Her jaw dropped as the puppet performed a mid-air split. The stress caused its left leg to pop off. It landed awkwardly, kept spinning, and the loose leg flew past Naruko's cheek and stuck in a nearby wall. Naruko quickly retrieved it and launched it back at the puppet with precision. The puppet fell over upon impact. She turned to her companions. Itachi. Shisui, she said firmly. The Uchiha boys stood at attention. Please dispose of it, Naruko said coolly. They felt a sudden pressure from her tone. Before they could move, Aizen interjected, Naruko-san, don't be hasty, it's not that bad. Please burn it, Naruko repeated, her eyes focused. Aizen paled. He recalled an old mentor once saying, never let an Uzumaki repeat themselves about sealing techniques. Just nod and follow orders before they demonstrate why they're not to be challenged. Itachi-kun. Shisui-kun. Please proceed, he urged. They didn't hesitate. The puppet was engulfed in flames in seconds. Naruko added the matching tags from her pouch into the fire. She smiled sweetly at the group, a look that had once signaled clear the area during the First Shinobi War when an Uzumaki was about to unleash their full skill. Her tone was light, but firm. We didn't see anything. Databai-o. Shisui and Itachi nodded quickly. Of course, Naruko-san. Aizen replied instantly, while Shisui wondered why the Hokage had assigned someone so mild to teach a prodigy like her. Despite his timid nature, Aizen was an excellent instructor in sealing arts. This symbol represents propagation, he explained as he finished the final stroke for Kumo on the scroll. His writing was elegant and smooth. Naruko's, though precise, still showed hints of inexperience. This one means tranquility, ame, or rain. A symbol of calmness. Naruko copied the characters carefully. Why do high-level seals often use weather symbols? Aizen nodded thoughtfully. Because such seals need balance. The forces involved can be unstable, and weather is a natural expression of harmony, earth and sky, working together. He demonstrated by lowering one hand to represent earth and raising the other to represent the sky. Naruko watched, fully focused. Harmony. Exactly, he said. Even the sage of six paths used yin and yang, the principle of balance, to shape the world with chakra. So, was he a god? Naruko asked, already aware of Kurama's quiet laughter in her mind. Not quite, Aizen said with a smile. He didn't create everything, but he brought order with his understanding of chakra. And humanity misused it for generations, Kurama murmured. The old man would have had a word or two if he could see this now. Unfortunately, I can't argue with that, Naruko thought quietly. Maybe one day, people could escape this repetitive cycle? Who knows? Uzumaki-sama. Naruko turned to see a boy of Shisui's age holding a tray with snacks and steaming tea. You and Aizen Taiku have been studying for hours. I assume you'd like a refreshment. He had short, sandy blonde hair and grayish-blue eyes. His skin was fair, and he had a distinct short eyebrow that almost resembled the tip of a brush. He wore a dark gray kimono that parted at his chest, with his chest and abdomen wrapped in bandages. Ah! Takusa-kun. Aizen called out, and from the corner of Naruko's eyes, she could tell the slight twitch in her mentor's gaze, indicating his displeasure at the fact that Takusa had clearly placed Aizen below Naruko in status. Naruko always felt a little uneasy when Takusa or anyone from the Shiomitsu clan was around when Aizen was nearby. Takusa was part of a seal master clan specializing in weaponized applications, meaning they used seals to enhance weapons, and they were also blacksmiths. The Shiomitsu clan wasn't hostile by any means, but Naruko couldn't help feeling uneasy when they were introduced to the other members of the tower. The Shiomitsu clan seemed as though they were ready to bow in respect at the sight of her. Naruko's paranoia only deepened when she realized she was caught in the middle of some kind of political struggle in the tower, involving Takusa's clan and Aizen's subordinates. At first, she thought she could just mind her business and let them sort out their issues. But no, for some reason, their problems always seemed to revolve around her. The Shiomitsu clan had unofficially assigned Takusa to be Naruko's retainer, and they were insistent about it. The next thing Naruko knew, she couldn't be left alone with someone from the other side. If she was studying with Aizen, Takusa would either be there, studying on his own or bringing refreshments. While it didn't bother her too much, she wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially when Aizen and Takusa would occasionally exchange discreet glares. Aizen may have been the head of the tower, but it was clear he didn't have full control over everyone, especially the Shiomitsu clan. Naruko guessed it was like the old Senju Uchiha conflict. From what she had read in the records, the clans and families involved in the tower were always the same from generation to generation since Uzumaki Mito had founded the division. She just hoped this wouldn't turn out to be as complicated as the Senju Uchiha struggle. Uzumaki-sama. Takusa chirped. Naruko paused mid-stir. Ah yes, Takusa? What is it? She had learned to speak very carefully when these two were in the same room, especially when Aizen had his katana and Takusa had his glove at his belt. No fights had broken out yet, but it was clear that both of them were ready to use their weapons if necessary. Hakure Shisu found the reference scroll you wanted, Takusa informed her excitedly. There are a few interesting scrolls in our family archives that we believe would be helpful for your next project as well. Naruko beamed. Ah, I see. Then. Aizen cut in at that moment. There's a sample of grade A ink that just arrived. We should try it. I'm sure in my family archive, we have better reference scrolls. Oh, no. Hey! Naruko began to sweat under their intense gazes. Aizen seemed unaware that his mentor-like demeanor slipped whenever a member of the Shiamitsu clan was around. Tomorrow morning, I have a training session with Itachi and Shisui. Naruko didn't miss the slight flinch on Takusa's face when she mentioned her Uchiha friends. It seemed the Shiamitsu clan didn't particularly like the Uchiha, and Shisui had once even tried to rescue her from Takusa, fearing he might follow them to the training grounds. Naruko had to assure Takusa that she was completely safe with Itachi and Shisui. Itachi, being the more diplomatic one, even offered to swear an oath of protection, though Naruko had declined. She didn't need Itachi to prove anything to her unofficial retainer. In the end, Takusa reluctantly agreed, but the tension between him and Shisui was palpable whenever they met. From there, Takusa's home is closer, so I will go there first. Takusa nodded happily. On the way back to the tower, I'll pass by Shisho's place. Shisu should be home around 6, right? Aizen nodded. Yes. I will be there then. Naruko caught Takusa looking at her pleadingly, and she knew he wanted to follow her to Aizen's. Considering she'd be at Takusa's before Aizen's, and how persistent the Shiamitsu clan was going to be about it, Naruko sighed and added reluctantly, with Takusa. She closed her eyes and pretended not to hear the sharp sound of a brush snapping. That was the third brush this week. The next day. You look like you've been through a lot. Shisui commented as he and Itachi walked Naruko to their favorite training ground. Naruko glared at Shisui. I'm sorry if I've been indoors for 2 months, she said sardonically. And all the political drama didn't help either. Kemi. My whole body feels heavy like lead. Not everyone in the tower likes being cooped up indoors like this. After spending some time with Shisui, Naruko had come to realize there was no harm in acting like herself around him. Shisui was too carefree and hot-headed to plot anything devious, and his personality made him a pleasant person to be around. Shisui raised his hands in a placating gesture, not wanting to be the target of Naruko's frustration. No need to get so upset, Naruko. Can't you ask Aizen Dono to hold your lessons outside once in a while? Itachi and Naruko whipped their heads to look at him so quickly that they thought their necks might snap. Are you serious? They asked in disbelief. The Shushin expert raised an eyebrow. Hey, what's wrong with my suggestion? I'm working on an experimental seal, Naruko informed him. One I made from scratch. Doing it outside is like sticking an explosion tag on my face. Itachi tilted his head, then facepalmed. Naruko-kun, just tell him why that's a dangerous idea. Naruko sighed. First of all, Fuuinjutsu is a very volatile art when experimenting with creation. When we try to make a new seal, we need a lot of precautions to make sure we've accounted for every possible safety measure. Fuuinjutsu can be affected by many factors if you're not careful. She gestured to her face. I need to set up special barrier seals, the same ones we have in the chakra sterile rooms at the tower. It's meant to isolate the space from the ambient chakra in nature, so Fuuinjutsu performed there isn't influenced by the environment. Oh. So that's why, Shisui said flatly. If Naruko had to judge, her explanation probably didn't rate very high on Shisui's scale of usefulness. Shaking her head, Naruko continued. There's no way Shisho will let me take lessons outside, especially at this time of year. This time of year? Shisui asked. Itachi's eyes lit up in realization. Ah, I see. Oban is next week, right? Shisui crossed his arms. Now you've lost me. What does Fuuinjutsu have to do with ghosts visiting our homes? Hey. Naruko's sweat dropped. Aren't you a sensor shinobi, Shisui? Yeah? Itachi and Naruko exchanged a glance, then Itachi spoke. Don't you feel the difference at this time of year? It feels like it's harder to sense people's chakra, and the air feels heavy? Shisui thought for a moment before replying. Kind of, but I thought it was because of the heat. Itachi's left eye twitched. At this time of year, nature chakra peaks. Konoha's nature energy becomes comparable even to sacred places like Myobakuzen. It's a very dangerous time to attempt untested Fuuinjutsu outside of a controlled environment, he explained solemnly. But if you're good, and you're working with nature-based seals, it's the best time of year for you, Naruko added with a grin. Oh, that's why. Shisui hummed thoughtfully, eyeing Naruko skeptically. But still, you have no plans to stay in the tower like the other seal masters? Naruko nodded. I need to move more. I try to keep my body from getting stiff with stretching and light exercise, but it's not enough to keep my body in top shape. Itachi nodded. I agree with Shisui on this, Naruko-kun. Can't you squeeze in some taijutsu practice at least? Naruko groaned. I wish I could. For one thing, you need more sun, Shisui teased. Did you know that a lack of exposure to sunlight can lead to depression? Naruko scoffed. I don't need more sun, I need more of myself. What? Shisui asked, confused. Naruko rolled her eyes. I wish I could split myself so I can study seals and work on my physical training at the same time, she said wistfully, and then maybe Aizen's followers and Tokusa's clan would stop. She had no wish to be disputed over in the tower as a bone of contention. She raised an eyebrow at the intense stare Itachi and Shisui gave her. Considering the Uchihas had sharp jet black eyes, it was pretty unnerving. Why are you looking at me like that? Itachi and Shisui turned their attention to each other. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Shisui asked with a grin. Itachi nodded, most likely. The Shushin expert grinned and then turned to Naruko. Itachi looked at her with his usual stoic face, but Naruko could see the same strange glint in their jet black eyes. Have you heard of Cage Bunshine, Naruko-chan? He asked, rubbing his hands together with a grin on his face. Eh? Shisui was bristling as he watched 5 blonde clones toddle above the water surface, 3 on the trees, and the other 2 were reading scrolls. 10 at once. And she did it as easily as breathing. HN. Itachi nodded. I can only do 2. And that will leave me winded for the rest of the day. He ranted in a frustrated tone. Itachi shrugged, HN. Shisui gave his cousin a side glance. She didn't even use her tenet, right? I can't feel any demon chakra at all. She's a natural chakra powerhouse even without it. HN. Natural for an Uzumaki, I guess. Shisui added tiredly. I wish I had that much chakra to throw around. You know. The real Uzumaki called them from her perch on the tree. I can't hear your conversation from here, but I can tell Itachi only said HN to you in response, and yet you converse as if he gave you a complete sentence. She pointed out with a dumbfounded face, I thought HN is some sort of stock response you guys give whenever you don't have anything else to say. Shisui snorted, there's a broad meaning in the HN of Uchiha. Itachi rolled his eyes as he walked closer to Naruko while Shisui continued his postponed reading of the fire jutsu scroll on his lap. Basically what you said, I didn't feel like replying to Shisui. The Uchiha prodigy said. It's a habit that plagues the Uchihas like a curse. Naruko rolled her eyes then whispered, tapping her belly discreetly. Apparently, the curse has been passed down for generations since the genesis of the shinobi world. I don't think it's genetic like the Uzumaki verbal tic, but more like kids miming their parents, so. She took a deep breath, if I ever grunt like you do in your vicinity, please whack me on the head as hard as you can. My tenant doesn't want me to pick up any Uchiha habits, and you know how picky he is. Itachi nodded, at any rate. About Cage Bunshine's memory advantage, if you. I know. Naruko cut him off. It's about my psychological age, isn't it? The Uchiha nodded again. After they showed her how to do Cage Bunshine a day before, Naruko had researched the jutsu herself. She had a paranoia of a seasoned Onbu, cautious and alert to her surroundings even in her sleep. Itachi acknowledged that as part of the physiological wound, the years of negligence had taken its toll on the young Jinchuriki. Cage Bunshine at first seemed like an innocent solution to Naruko's problem, but it wasn't until Shisui finished showing her the hand seal that the consequences crashed on her mind. Cage Bunshine's memory would be transferred to the user, which made it an excellent espionage tool when used right, and it had little risk aside from chakra drain. However, when a chakra powerhouse like Naruko used it, there was no way she wouldn't abuse the technique. It wasn't a wrong thing to do, though, since it was like saying abusing the Sharingan's copy ability was wrong. Naruko, however, had matured psychologically beyond her years, and Cage Bunshine would make the maturing process faster. Naruko still had childish tendencies from time to time, but at this rate, she would lose that last bit of innocence she had left. Itachi always saw Naruko as a friend and was painfully aware it wasn't as a younger friend but someone equal. It wouldn't be a bad thing per se if Naruko were already wearing a headband and older. Naruko was the same age as Sasuke, but after their first meeting, that simple fact never crossed Itachi's mind. At one point, Itachi forgot this girl was 4 years younger than him, just like Sasuke, and not a fellow shinobi his age. And yet. Oi, Itachi. He was snapped out of his thoughts when he felt a fist drilling into his left temple playfully. Naruko was hanging from a branch upside down with her fist on Itachi's temple. What are you doing? Naruko sighed, crossing her arms. Don't overthink it. She warned him, you always do that. It's no wonder you have stress lines under your eyes already when you haven't even hit puberty yet. Itachi stared at Naruko in disbelief. His younger friend always said the strangest things out of nowhere and so bluntly. What do you know about puberty? Naruko tapped her chin and then looked at Shisui, who was practicing his katan technique. What's Shisui going through for one? And no thanks to my tenant telling me what it is and that I could find a book about it if I am curious. She shook her head, that taught me for being too curious. Itachi just smiled at that, I see. There's no use crying over spilled milk. Naruko muttered as Itachi looked up at her. In the first place. She closed her eyes, I have little choice when it comes to my life since the day I was born. Even entering the ninja academy wasn't my choice. Eh? Naruko smiled bitterly. I am an orphan, there are few choices to survive. And my heritage and status are assets Konoha won't ever let go. The very same reason she was enrolled early into the academy, brimming with potential they couldn't afford to waste while she had no say in the matter. Ah. I see. Naruko waved her finger warningly. What did I say about stressing your mind over little things? One from the past nonetheless? Naruko huffed. We're prodigies, right? That's what they said at least. She grumbled under her breath, while we do have the brainpower, it's not necessarily the wisdom to put it to good use. We still have a long future ahead. Just take it in stride, shall we? Naruko hopped off her perch and landed beside Itachi. Besides, you'll be with me to face it, wouldn't you? His lips curved up into a small and barely noticeable smile, one Naruko had seen a couple of times that spoke louder than anything. Of course. Naruko thought her halcyon days wouldn't end so soon, that she was never willing to let them go. My dear YouTube family. This is all for this part. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Love you all. 6 Path Weeb.